Very good. It's 2:00, so we will begin the liquor control agenda for today. Just a couple items on the agenda. And number one is to review possible liquor violations, and 1A is determine possible liquor violations, the windbreak, serving obviously intoxicated or impaired persons. And with that, Steve Sprague, our city auditor, will get us started. Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner and board members. Thank you for being here, taking time out of your day to be here. And so today, most of this presentation is going to be by the police, but we had an event that occurred in late October where a patron was appears to have been served a number of drinks. And so proper notice has been given and the hearing date has been set for today, January 25th at 2 o'clock. And we'll review the incidents of that day on October 21st, 2023, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions and we'll move forward from there.
So what we'll do is we'll have the law enforcement first, and then we'll have the other side next, and then we'll have questions after that, if that's okay with everyone. So we'll begin with Chief Zabalski. Chief?
Good afternoon, Board. I'm going to turn this first portion over to Sergeant Golos, who conducted an investigation into this allegation of over-serving and viewed some video, and he's going to walk you through his observations.
Hello. Just as that last time I liaisoned with the windbreak, so I'll review all the liquor forms that come in. This specific one caught my attention. In summary, on October 21st, 23, about 2:17 in the morning, officers responded to the windbreak. The caller was one of the patrons at the establishment. Officers located a male that was passed out on extremely intoxicated. They stated that he couldn't walk, form complete sentences, stand on his own, and had urinated himself. The male had been drinking at the windbreak and was transported to a local hospital prior to being taken to detox. I reviewed their body camera, agreed with their assessments, and then met with Mike to watch the video at the windbreak. So my report is kind of in bullet point as far as what happened, so I'll kind of go through that a little bit. In summary, as far as the amount of alcohol he was served at the establishment, according to the video, in about 96 minutes that he spent at the windbreak, he had 4 mixed drinks and 10 shots. So he walks into the building at about 11:51, goes to the big wheel, plays some games, and has his first drink at about 0:12 hours. So then at 0:22 hours, he goes to the bar, sets his drink down. He's, I should say he's fine, walking around normally when he enters the establishment. At 0:25 hours, he orders a mixed drink for himself. At 37, he orders a shot and drinks it. At 43, he goes to the table, sits down his drink, is talking to people. He's walking fine, appears fine. 0:44, he orders 2 bomb shots, one for himself and one for somebody else. And Mike explained to me that these are, he says these are pretty weak shots because I think they're mixed with energy drinks and liquor type of alcohol drinks. 0:48 hours, goes to the restroom, appears fine, walking normally. 0:54, buys 2 drinks and gives them away. At 57, buys 3 shots, gives one away, and gives 2 away and drinks 1. At 59, just before 1 a.m., buys 1 mixed drink. At 1:04, buys a mixed drink and 2 Yeg bomb shots. At 01:08 hours, drinks both of the shots, and he appears to be walking normally this time. 01:18 hours, takes another shot. 01:28 hour takes 28 hours, takes another shot. Where it gets, I guess, interesting enough for interpretation is 01:38 hours. At this point, he goes to the bar and is sitting down. His back is to the camera, so I can't tell you what his demeanor is or his actions are because his back is to the camera. So he's drinking there with, I believe, off-duty employees, one of the off-duty managers. So once he starts sitting down, takes a shot at 1:38, takes a shot at 1:42. At 1:45, he gets a tab by the bartender. It seems to be some kind of confusion or conversation about maybe what the tab is, if it's right, because it takes him a while to pay. 0148 hours, takes another shot. He just took it off a table. I don't think that one was served specifically to him. And then at 0154 hours, he's given water by staff, and 56 security has to kind of drag him off because he can't walk. So when he sat down on the stool, he was a little bit slow in his movement prior to that, but he was fine when he sat down. At some point, either the alcohol or something happened to him where by the time he was leaving the establishment, he had to be escorted out by security because he couldn't walk. Do you guys have any questions for me?
So if there's any questions, I guess, so to me, do we have a tally of the total number of drinks and the amount of time? I guess I'd be curious to know what that is.
So in 96 minutes is from the time he was given his first drink, not necessarily drank it, from the time he was given his first drink till he left. 96 minutes, 4 mixed drinks, 10 shots.
Very good. Any other questions? And if some come up after the other testimony, we can revisit it. But I think if everyone's good, we'll just move on to the other side. Very good. Go ahead. Introduce yourself if you don't mind, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, Tim O'Keefe, attorney for the Windbreak. I want to start out by saying that I'll get to the facts. I've always tried to get to the facts, and we never seem to, but I will get there. Again, to use the term over-serving is not what the ordinance says, so I'll just reiterate that. What we're talking about in looking at a violation of 25-1509.2 is, in this case, did the windbreak serve an obviously intoxicated individual? And there are denoted in the new ordinance A, B, C through I, things to look for to determine if someone is obviously intoxicated. What I'd first say is that I hope, and I've never had an issue with the members of this committee being fair, but I would hope that you would go into this with an open mind and think about this case before you make your decision. 2 days ago, we were before the city commission on a matter you had heard already. And Commissioner Pepcorn made some comments that lead me to believe that this is already decided for him. We are going to take much more action in the very near future, he said about the windbreak. I think
If I can interrupt you for one second as well, you also made a statement in the paper saying that the city of Fargo was targeting the windbreak, and to me, this has been going on for 3 years, and there's nobody targeting anyone. We are going by the actions that the windbreak is not either taking or not taking, and so that's my comment. Thank you.
Is that a question or a comment?
It's a comment. I'm not making a
I'll
question.
move on. So what Mr. Pepcorn said was, again, we are going to take much more action in the very near future. I think they are right on the edge of losing their liquor license. This has been going on for years. I'm fed up. This is the second time that a violation of 25-1509.2 has been brought up. The last time we disputed that it was a violation, you found in a vote of 3-2 that it was. I'll ask you to look closer at this one as well. What I don't think is appropriate is making up your mind before looking at the facts and comparing them to the ordinance. And once you do that, I think you should find that there was not a violation. You may not be happy with being here again due to the windbreak doing something that has been brought to your attention. But what I would say to that is, in the spring, when an agreement was made to try to work with the windbreak, an institution that 2 days ago John Strand said is one heck of an institution for the city of Fargo. I would think you would look back to that agreement that was made and what was going on at the time and the actions that the windbreak has taken since the spring of last year. Chief Sobalski came out in the spring and said they have good staff and a good operation. Mr. Pepcorn said, scanners would be really good. We've talked about scanners in this board many times. They have a scanner now. Mr. Sprague said, I would rather help guide a business rather than come down really hard on them. Excuse me, I'm just battling a little throat issue. My point being, it is often easier to work with someone than to take the confirmation bias approach of, well, they're just always messing up. They're always over-serving. They're always doing these things. The actions of this board can be very detrimental to a business, but I think they were on the road to being very positive for this business up to this point. This business has cooperated with the police department. Sergeant Golos gets rave reviews from Mike Liebachuk for his professionalism, demeanor, and attitude, and the way they've worked together. This should be a two-way street. No other bar is doing as much as the Windbreak, is my contention. They may have had problems in the past. Those problems were discussed with city leaders such as yourselves. They're working with their liaison officer. They have scanners. They have security guards. They have cameras. They do all of their required training. They are eliminating shot specials. Calls are way down. In fact, I don't think, and Chief Sobalski might be able to help me, I don't know that there's been a serious call since October. I call that progress. This should not be a punishment for this particular situation. I'll move on to the situation. What we don't have is toxicology. We don't have the scientists here to tell us how much, what the BAC is of this individual, how big he is. I mean, maybe the officer knows what his height and weight are, but everyone has different tolerances. The ordinance doesn't address the BAC of someone like a driving offense would, a DUI. It addresses the appearance of someone and what a reasonable person would see in an obviously intoxicated individual. And everyone is different. In this particular case, it might be easy to find signs of intoxication after, in fact, watching the video back, taking the time to move in and out, zoom in and out. There's no sound on the videos, but you can see it. And as defined by the ordinance, a person's obvious intoxication or impairment is reasonably discernible or evident to a person of ordinary experience. That's the standard. Sergeant Golos has far more experience than a person of ordinary experience, and Sergeant Golos did not determine this individual was obviously intoxicated. Now again, on its face, you hear, wow, this guy had 4 drinks and 10 shots in 96 minutes. But at 1:38, I'll even go back to 1:32, Sergeant Golos notes he looked. At 1:38, when he sat down, there's nothing to indicate anything but normal. It's noted in his report that there were employees sitting there drinking. Well, there were drinks for employees, however you want to look at it. There were some employees sitting there, but they were off duty. If they were on duty drinking, they would have been fired. That's a strict rule of the windbreak. But what happens at 1:38 is This unidentified individual takes shots that were on the bar or in another case on another table and drinks them. Within 15 minutes of 138, the staff came over and gave him a water and escorted him outside. In looking at the summary of Sergeant Golos, he says, in this situation, I can't definitively say the male was overserved. What I think the facts show, and I know Commissioner Pepcorn won't like this, but they show that it wasn't a violation of the ordinance. And I think finding a violation would be finding a violation because you don't like what the windbreak has done in the past, and you're not looking at this one situation. So, I don't know why we're here, a special meeting to deal with this. I've had numerous individuals around the community contact me and say, are we next? Are we going to be brought in because somebody got drunk at our bar and drove and got a DUI? Will they come back and look at what we served? How do we run a business? This seems unfair. My contention is simply this. In this case, perhaps this individual shouldn't have been given as many drinks as he was, but it wasn't a violation of the ordinance. When he was given drinks, he wasn't obviously intoxicated. On its face, it may not sound right, but I don't see it as a violation. What I see here is a bar that has taken a lot of steps forward. And to bring the hammer on them now just doesn't seem very fair. So that's the appeal we're making to you today, and we'll take any questions.
Any questions?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. Comment is, I did see at the de-escalation yesterday, and I think that it was great that how the instructor talked about how difficult the hospitality business is and what pressures you have, and I totally understand that. If I can just go over a couple things and then ask a question. So on the issue that happened in July that we just had a hearing on in October, there was obviously a notification on the beginning of October that we were going to have a hearing on the 24th. This issue happened on the 21st. So you knew that you were going to have a potential violation for over-serving and a hearing on the 24th. And on the 21st, we have a potential of over-serving 14 or 4 drinks and 10 shots in 96 minutes. Now, you just said that the windbreak has discontinued shot discounts or doing other different things. I guess my question is as a business operator, if you are seeing over-serving being an issue in your location or whatever the issue is, what are you said they've made changes, but those changes, are they, when would they start, or what? I guess my question would be is, what is your protocol for ordering drinks? Because right here you said something about shots, and he ordered 3 drinks. He ordered a drink plus 2 shots within 4 minutes.
Yeah,
So I guess I'm not here to ask or to say how to run your business, but if you can explain as far as how you determine on serving, or
yeah. So it's
if
a
that makes
very,
sense.
very fair question. And I don't run the business, I just come to these meetings for them. But it's a very fair question. And what happens a lot of times did in this situation, this gentleman would go up and there were a couple times that he would buy more than 1 shot, but it was to buy it for someone else too. So he'd buy a shot for himself and someone else and take it. So the best way I understand their policy is that, you know, they don't have to be as cautious about the minors once they get inside, arguably, because they use the scanners and they have security, and, you know, maybe the first drink they'll card them again. But when it comes to shots, they're giving one person 1 shot. If they come up and say, I'm ordering for my table or order from the server for the table, then they'll get multiple shots, but they're intended for the other people. And in this case, at the end of the night, there were some off-duty employees having some drinks, and this guy just grabbed their shot glass. That's what I understand. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of different aspects of it as far as what I mean, every business has a protocol or procedures as far as drinks and how that goes. You know, some bars will say you can only have one drink at one point in time. Other bars do. And again, not dictating. I'm just asking. But
No, very fair question.
when you look at here where someone's getting a drink plus 2 shots and then drinks all 3 of them in less than 4 minutes.
Yeah, and I think, you know, they do their best. He was buying shots for a table behind him. There are multiple servers sometimes when somebody's walking around the bar, not just ordering from the bartender or the same server, not sedentary at a table. Those are the challenges, and I think, you know, Mr. Nelson was out there and observed their operation, and I understand from his prior comments he had a really good conversation with Mr. Liebachuk. I hope he observed that they're trying to put those procedures in place to prevent what we've all labeled here as over-serving. In this case, all I'm asking you to look at in a vacuum is that this individual did not appear to be obviously intoxicated according to the ordinance of the city of Fargo when he was actually served a drink. You know, the fact that he grabbed a shot off of that was somebody else's, you can't always help that. That's, you know, where I go back to my personal responsibility arguments in the last case and this one. You know, when are we going to hold those individuals responsible for their bad actions rather than taking it out on the bar?
I've got a question probably for the police officer. In reviewing the video, do you recall how many different servers were involved with serving this patron? And also, was he paying with cash or did he use a credit card? I guess with the idea of, you know, was there one bartender watching this entire thing happen?
Not one bartender. If I remember correctly, 2 or 3. He was all at the bar. There's no like servers finding him and him ordering drinks. Everything was ordered at the bar. Then he paid his tab at the very end. They usually have 2 or 3 servers in the bar, and they're just serving whoever comes up to the bar.
Can I ask a question about the blood alcohol content? It said he was taken to the hospital. Do you know if his blood alcohol content was ever checked?
I don't have information for that. What I can say is to take somebody to detox is a high burden, legally speaking. The officer has to determine that the person is a danger to themselves or others. In this instance, he was a danger to himself for being passed out, urinating himself. That's why he was taken to detox. I don't know about his BAC. The jail typically does that. We don't get that information from them.
Yeah, I've got a comment. Mr. O'Keefe, I think you do point out, the A through I of the ordinance. I think that, running a bar and having bartenders and waitresses and what the city is trying to get to here is there is an implied responsibility. And, if whether he drank all the drinks, he was walking around giving away shots, picking up shots, we don't know. But let's say he had between 10 and 14 drinks in 90 minutes. And he was actually there with employees, even if they were off duty. And I think that's a microcosm. And these things happen in bars. It's not just happening at the windbreak. This is unfortunately the way the bar business works. And I do agree with, it feels like the responsibility is tipping more towards the bars than it used to be, self-responsibility. You're going out to drink, you need to behave yourself, et cetera. But I think this stands out. And, I do agree that Mike has put a lot of things in play. I understand he had 9 people at the escalation training. That's a good step. You know, he and I have talked about some other things. But I think it's a culture thing, and with a nightclub like this, you've got to be better than good, I think. So my question is, how do we get to that? And I think that's what the city is asking for. If there's any implication that the windbreak is being picked on, I don't agree with that at all, from what I see and what I hear. I'm not in all the behind the wall meetings, et cetera, but I've been to, you know, a special meeting with Mike and what's gone on here, et cetera. So I do think we have a problem. You know, I agree that just keep fining until they lose a license is not where I want to see this thing going. I don't think anybody here wants to. I think Commissioner Pepcorn, his statement was not saying that he wants to get the windbreak. It's like, you know, this is continuing. If you search the windbreak on the city website under the Liquor Control Board, there's item after item after item, and a lot of them are over-serving that go back to 2016. So that's way before any of the board members' time here and before the chief's time here in Fargo. So I think everybody's trying to put an asterisk on the seriousness here. And it's not a personal thing against Mike or his employees or whatever. It's a bar that has these situations. And, you know, I'm not sure if the fine is the right thing or not, but I do think this is another strong situation, strong exclamation mark of the problem at hand. And I don't know, in my world in business, you know, you'd come up with a performance improvement plan and be responsible to that if there were serious issues. And that's the way I look at this. You know, can improvements be made that gives the city a feeling that this situation is getting safer? Because again, to repeat myself, I don't see how anybody could order, you know, 14 drinks and drink 10 plus drinks in a bar in an hour and a half, and the staff has got to be aware of that, hey, this is the situation.
So,
I would just like to add to that, you know, it's because Mike is willing to work with Sergeant Golos. It's because they're willing to have him come in and look at the video, and they cooperate, and they're trying to get better. And I think their performance over the last year has shown that. I know that these two incidences are here, but they're in such a vacuum. You can't tell me this isn't happening at other bars and restaurants. But what's not happening is the police department isn't sending a sergeant in to review video and find, you know, how often this person was served. And so I think it should be just that, another learning moment, and keep the progress going forward. If that's the goal of this board, to keep businesses in business and doing it the right way, especially businesses that have spent the time, effort, and money to further train their staff. You know, they had 9 at the de-escalation yesterday. I bet there weren't any other bars that had that many. They have all their trainers up to date. They have a long-time staff. They really do take this serious. They've had 2 incidents now that have come here, but the progress is there. I don't know what was going on in 2016, but the calls are way down now, and they're not as many. They're not number one in incident calls by any means. There are a lot of other bars that are doing that, but nobody else is here. They're the ones that have been here, so we have to deal with it. I understand you have to deal with it. My pitch to you is that you found a violation on the last one. I don't think it needs to be done again. That was the day before and they didn't actually get notice of this until January 9th. That was the other comment I was going to make to Mr. Brecky, but they always take it serious. Mike does, he's here again. They do everything they can to keep their staff in line. I met with their lead managing bartender again yesterday to talk about, you know, what he's doing and all the steps he's doing to take it serious. Every time I go out there, it's clean. Everything's in order. They've got their staff there. They're doing training. It's amazing to me. And I've been in a lot of bars in this town, good, bad, or indifferent. They're making progress. I would hate to see that come to an end with this successful business in the city of Fargo.
So Chief, I have a couple requests for you. First of all, if we can get the blood alcohol content this will be going on to the city commission. And so if you don't mind, if we can track that down, that'd be great. And then if you could get a couple of dates for me, you and I met with the owner, that was a while ago. If you could get that date, because we met, and then also Bob went out and met with them too. And so if you could just have those dates for our future reference. And I will say, so, this time, this would be a second offense. The maximum is a $1,000 administrative penalty plus a one-day suspension determined to be determined by the Liquor Control Board. So that's the maximum fine. I believe, Nancy, at this point, this would be classified as the second offense. And I do think they're realizing now this, let's say if it was a $1,000 fine, they have much more at risk than a $1,000 fine. At this point, they have much more at risk. And I think you're realizing that. And so this is a very serious issue. It's like you said, it's a very successful business. It's very valuable. The liquor license is very valuable, and this is very serious. But to have you say this is not a violation, 10 shots and 4 mixed drinks in an hour and a half, and to say one of the things that we do have some sympathy with saying, hey, we don't control what people do before they come into our bar. This is when he was in your bar. And so to me, that's the thing, that this is clearly, you're not getting the message when this is the amount of, that's prodigious alcohol consumption. 10 shots in an hour and a half. I'm not a medical doctor, but you could die from alcohol poisoning with that much alcohol in your system. So that's my comments. Go ahead, Chief.
Sure, thanks. Just a couple of comments before I turn it over to the city attorney. And I would concur with some of the other comments that we have worked extensively with the Windbreak, Mike, and personnel there in a number of different areas over the course of the last couple of years. They have improved in the area of underage drinking or underage admission significantly. This over-intoxication issue has continued to prevail over the course of that time, and that's an area that I don't feel that they have done much at all with. And to answer Mr. O'Keefe's question, we absolutely can say that the Windbreak is by far the only licensed premise in this city that we 19 times in 2023 had to get sent there for an over-intoxication case much like this. The difficulty of investigating each one of these is time. It takes several hours to go through their video system, which doesn't have it's screen. So Sergeant Golos, on these situations that have come forward before you recently, has to spend countless hours reviewing this and trying to come to a conclusion. We can't spend the resources on that in all of these, but just 19 in 1 year, that's more than one a month. I have a very strong concern that someone's going to end up dead from this situation. In terms of the violation, I'll let the city attorney comment, but for the last part of the evening, Sergeant Golos couldn't see the front of this individual because that's where the video was pointed. But where did he consume his last 3 shots, adding up to 14, with Windbreak staff? It doesn't matter to me, in my opinion, that they're off duty or on duty. Everyone probably knows their staff. These are people above and beyond ordinary experience. They are trained servers. I find it very hard to believe that after consuming 14 drinks, and if we go back to 129, Sergeant Golos does note that he appears to walk slower but straight. And about 9 minutes later is where he sits down with the staff and ultimately consumes 3 more shots. So I think there is for whatever reason, a culture in terms of how people are served and how they're allowed to consume in this establishment that not only takes up a large amount of police resources, but it is a public safety issue from the over-intoxication perspective. So I just wanted to touch on that, and I'll turn it over to the city attorney.
Thank you. And I just want to point out a couple of things that, just for clarification purposes, the agreement with the Liquid Hospitality LLC regarding the windbreak was entered into signed by the mayor in May of 2023 and by the owner of the establishment in June of 2023. So I think there was some discussion about what has been done and what some of those discussion points were. Really, my point for being here today is really to kind of give you what your mandate is what you're looking at. As we've discussed before, a license to operate in the city of Fargo is a privilege. That license is granted by the city of Fargo, and the city of Fargo does make the rules and regulations for that practice of selling alcohol in the city. You are being asked to determine whether or not the windbreak violated these rules on October 21st, 2023. And again, I would call your attention to the facts that are presented to you on that particular night as to the service of a patron. I call your attention to the ordinance itself, and I appreciate is somebody been overserved? You're looking at the characteristics, but the violation is actually by a person who is or has been or has become intoxicated. So I think the question before you is, did he become intoxicated at the windbreak, and is that then a violation of the intoxication ordinance? Of course, the server training addresses when you should and should not serve any individual. There was 14 drinks overall. There was a tab. I would point out that a tab typically is a running tab, so it may have been known to subsequent servers that what the number was on that tab. So there's an accumulation of those drinks known to all of the servers, regardless that was served at the bar. So it is a question of when they knew or should have known that this individual became over intoxicated. Again, I would bring you back to the facts that demonstrate whether the actions of the windbreak employees resulted in over-serving. And if so, I believe a violation would be appropriate. Again, we're not looking at a criminal proceeding here. We're not looking at beyond a reasonable doubt. The question presented to you is, do the facts demonstrate a violation of an ordinance that is a privilege to operate within the city of Fargo? If so, the motion would be to find a violation. This would be the second violation, which Commissioner Pepcorn correctly identified is a violation of 25-15-12F, which is a $1,000 fine and a 1-day suspension. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question for the police officer. When the person was found passed out, were they outside or inside?
They were outside at that time.
Okay, in the parking lot?
Correct.
Okay. So for me, looking at the facts here, when we talk about the standard, more likely than not, I don't think we as Liquor Control Board members are required to disregard our personal experience and ordinary experience when we come through these doors. I occasionally go out with my friends. I go to bars. I know what it's like to have one person of your group go up to the bar and maybe order several drinks and bring it back to your friends. To me, where this is different, it's that he was sitting at the bar. He was drinking apparently with staff. And I've heard a comparison a couple times, I think it was at our last meeting, to a grocery store, and we don't blame them, hold them accountable for shoplifters. To me, the difference here is that this is a liquor establishment that has a license. You apply for it, you go through these trainings, and it's different, and it comes with a higher responsibility. And to me, this is an egregious example of serving all these shots. It was close to bar close as well, and then he's just taken outside. And so I think when you look at the standard of you should have known and it be evident to a person of ordinary experience, I think it should have been, and that is why I will vote in favor of this violation.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that comment. And if you look at the time frame, if the bar would have been, open till 3 a.m, within 14 minutes of his last shot, he had to be escorted out. So he couldn't walk. So if the bar would have been open until 3 o'clock, which I know it's not, but if he would have came in 15 minutes earlier, he would have been physically impaired, because obviously with taking that much alcohol in that short period of time, all of a sudden just really affected him. So the timetable is where it went from not being intoxicated in losing bodily control inside was moved outside. So you can see that within 14 minutes that he went from very extreme intoxication. So
Any other comments or questions?
I have a quick question for Nancy. Nancy, what's the next level? What would the third strike be?
The third level is a $2,000 fine and a 2-day suspension. And the fourth level is revocation of the license.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, if we're ready, a motion?
Moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. Go ahead, Nancy.
I just want to seek clarification on the motion that was presented to move forward. Is a motion to find a violation of 25-1509.2, find that it is a second violation, and to recommend imposing the recommendation to City Commission to impose the penalty pursuant to 25-1512F.
Correct. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for putting it much better than I did.
No, I appreciate the just spelling it out so we know what's moving forward to City Commission. Thank you.
Okay, very good. That's everything for this afternoon. Thank everybody for being here, and we are adjourned.